Welcome to the Spirit-Led Podcast, your guide on a journey to full enlightenment in this beautiful life. I'm your host, Joan Hope Craig. Each episode we explore spiritual wisdom, life's purpose, and the profound impact of daily choices on our personal growth and the world. Welcome, beloved divine listeners, and welcome to today's guest, Meemie. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce you to our audience. Meemie Lohmueller is the Pastoral Care Minister at Unity of the Triangle in Raleigh, North Carolina. She has been in Unity for 30 years and was ordained at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in New York City as an interfaith, interspiritual minister, where she embraced a variety of spiritual practices, including the major religions of the world. Meemie's passion is for affirmative prayer and spiritual companionship. As a pastoral care minister, she supports the prayer and spiritual needs of her congregants through spiritual counseling and training volunteers in an affirmative prayer. And Meemie, I'm so happy that you're here, not only because I've had the chance to get to know you a little bit and listen to some of your prayers that you've recorded. It's going to be a blessing, but also because I think it's really good timing for the world.
Mhm.
I've been thinking what the world needs now is peace and maybe
Yeah,
prayer.
yeah.
So thank you for being here. Tell us about your work with prayer. Tell us about the work that you do.
So we have volunteers in our church that participate in the prayer chaplain program, which is a training program that's licensed and is very extensive. It's about 30 hours of training, but they are trained in affirmative prayer of how to pray one-on-one with individuals. And it's like boot camp for prayer. And so when they come out of that, they're able to pray one on one with individuals. They not only pray on Sunday with individuals that want prayer, but they also make a call once a month to our members saying, how can we support you in prayer? So that's the top level. Then below that, we've got the Sacred Prayer Circle, which is a group of people that they're not as trained as prayer chaplains, but they hold the first name of the names put in the prayer box every Sunday. They hold those first names in their private prayer practice every day. So it's a great way for them to develop a prayer practice. And then we've got another team called the Extended Care Team, which are former prayer chaplains that have received additional training in supporting people in the hospital, going through a long-term illness, more extreme situations. And then we've got the Friend Indeed team, which is a group of volunteers that provide meals and transportation to the hospital, to doctor's appointments, things like that. So we've got about 50, at least 75 volunteers that are participating in our prayer ministry. And then I provide spiritual counseling for those individuals that would request it. So it keeps me busy.
Wow, that's amazing. And so the people that are the prayer chaplains that are working one-on-one with others or going to visit them, I know there's different levels, or even the people just doing it in their personal prayer, they're not ministers who've
No,
gone to
they are not.
seminary. They're
They
just
are not.
people who wanted to be involved, and it's their way of volunteering. Like instead of picking up
Yeah.
trash maybe they pick up trash on the side of the road too,
Right,
but this
right,
is their
right.
way of serving. Wow,
That's
that's
right. That's
beautiful.
right. They do. And it's a beautiful way for them to grow. It's a
Yeah.
transformative experience. And it's a tight group. I mean, they support each other um, in life. It's like it's like a mini ministry within the ministry.
Mhm.
So if you're wanting to grow and transform and awaken, this is a beautiful way to do it because you're practicing it. You are walking the talk.
Well, and so this is specific to Unity and of the Triangle where you are. Is this something that's offered in all Unity churches?
All Unity churches have the opportunity to have this program. We probably have the most extensive program. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and
and
I've expanded it. I mean, like I said, it's a licensed program developed by a Unity minister, and I've expanded even further. And so they're not only getting how to pray, but they're also getting all the Unity principles. It's a beautiful program.
And how did you end up here? What's your path that you ended up being the person who teaches people how to pray with others?
Yeah. Well, I was raised in the Presbyterian church. But I was raised in that church and always believed. I've just never really had an opportunity to practice. And then when I went to college, I continued. But then after college, it's like took a hiatus, and then you reach about 40, and it's like I'm seeking now. And so I went around to a lot of different churches. And the Unity Church, when I walked in the Unity Church, I felt like I had come home, and it just spoke to me. And I didn't think there was anything like that out there. It touched my heart. So I was in Unity for quite a while, and then um, they offered the prayer chaplain program. Somebody else was offering the prayer chaplain program in the training, and I thought that's something I can do, because I've been a good listener, and people always would come and talk to me, and I felt like I had to fix it. When I saw this program, I thought, I can do this, and I don't have to fix. So it was very freeing. So I got into the program, and I've been in it for like 25, 30 years. And little by little, worked up to the team leader. And then I guess it was about 13 years ago, the minister called and said, we need somebody to handle our pastoral care program. Would you do it? And so I did. I stepped up. And so people were always telling me, you need to be a minister, you need to be a minister. So I did, and then I eventually went to seminary, and it just kept growing. I mean, it's just kept expanding.
Well, I love what you said about this program when you were first exposed to it helped you realize you don't have to fix anything. And I'm a former health and wellness coach, and that was one of the first lessons. It's like we're not fixing anything. We're
Right,
listening and helping
right,
them come to their own
right.
conclusions. So, but what brought you into prayer? What brought you into? You mentioned you kind of left church for a while and you came back. So, at what point in your life did you reconnect to that practice, or had you always been praying your whole life?
I had not, and so this is what I tell the prayer chaplains when I begin training. I said, when I came into this program, I had never said a prayer out loud. I wasn't really praying myself. And when I started learning, I had my index cards of all the different phrases and different things, because I was afraid I wasn't going to do it right. And I just kept practicing and practicing. And then you start making prayer calls to congregants. And after you make 30 calls a month, you start getting a hang of it, and it starts changing you. So we say it's a practice. Prayer is a practice, and it has to be done over and over again. And the more you do it, the deeper you go and the better you get. And the more it affects you, and the more you feel like you're assisting others. So it's pretty contagious.
But you had also mentioned to me something happened in your life that caused you to pray.
Yes,
And
yes.
do,
So
do you feel comfortable sharing that?
sure. So I was a CEO of a credit union, raised two financial institutions up by the bootstraps, long hours, high stress, yada, yada, yada. Did a good job with it, but it was very intense. And then I got sick. I mean, I like, boom. God said, okay, we're stopping you. This is too much. And then I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I laid in bed for about 10 years. So that was a long time to contemplate. And I wasn't praying at that point. I wasn't going to a church at that point. But I did have this thought that, well, if it takes 10 years to get better, that's 10 years out of my life. I still have the rest of my life. And at the end of 10 years, I thought, well, that didn't work. And I started seeing signs, songs, books, phrases about surrendering, and even TV shows. I mean, what I just kept seeing, surrender, surrender, surrender. And so I paid attention, started paying attention, and I realized that I had to make it okay whether I got well or I didn't get well. And once I did that, that's when I started having a relationship again with God again.
So this happened at that time before you found unity.
Yes, about the same
Okay.
time. about the
So
same time.
as you were coming out of that
Yeah.
10-year period,
Yeah.
you discovered unity and then you got involved in the prayer program. Interesting. And so
And I
you
was still sick at that point. I mean, so was not working or doing, was not able to do this kind of work yet. I mean, it was like another 10 years, before yeah, or 5, whatever it was. It was a long time.
and so when you first started praying, you mentioned you had the index cards, but at what point did you feel it could come from you more organically, more naturally, where you didn't have to get it right?
Good question. I don't remember. I don't really remember. It just
Along
kind
the
of
way.
along the way
Yeah.
just kind of evolved, and I'm still evolving. I mean, I go back and I write out a lot of prayers, and I go back to prayers 10 years ago, and I compare it to what I'm doing now, and it's still an evolution. Just like we continually grow spiritually.
Well, tell us what is affirmative prayer and maybe at the same time if you could say like how might that be different from prayers we grew up with or other ways of praying? I'm sure there's maybe you could educate us a little bit about different
Yeah,
types of prayer and then what is affirmative
right.
prayer?
So, you've got your beseeching prayer. God, please do this, and this. And then asking prayers, things like that. Um, Affirmative prayer is stating a spiritual truth in an affirmative statement as if it has already occurred. Jesus said, pray as if it's already occurred. You've already received. And he also said, these things I do, and you can do as well. So, affirmative prayer is claiming or declaring spiritual truths, such as God is love, God is peace, God is light. We don't say, I want that parking space. That's a need or a desire. So you could do that. I affirm I'm getting a parking space, but that's not affirmative prayer. That's a wish or a hope. But we could say, I affirm that God is meeting every need at the time of the need. And I release my expectations, knowing that I will be given what I need. So affirmative prayer is something that is in the affirmative. It happened is this it's already happened. It's also something that is internal. We're not praying to a God outside. We're not separate. God is within. So we are accessing the God within and pulling forth the qualities of the divine that we are able to embody in this lifetime. We can't embody all of God's qualities, but we call forth what we can and we grow within that. Very different. It's not a God outside, it's not a God in the sky. It's a God that is present within. We are we are a part of that divine presence. And so we are
Mm.
connecting with it, we're aligning with it, we're harmonizing with it.
I'm
To
soaking in what you're saying. And so the I understand the difference between obviously asking for stuff we want in this material world and really speaking from universal, timeless truths. And I also want to chime in that in the Kriya yoga tradition, our guru, Roy Eugene Davis, he taught us to pray in God rather than to. And you're saying the God within, but also we could say everything is God, right? And so
everything is God.
we are already in God. He would say, become established in your awareness of the wholeness of life, and then say your prayers then.
Right.
When
You're
you've
praying
already feeling it.
from it, from
Yes,
that
in it.
space. Yeah,
Yeah,
from that space.
that's
Yeah.
aligned. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And so, what else do you want people to know about affirmative prayer?
The main thing is that it doesn't change God, it changes you.
Say
We
more
are
about that.
we are saying an affirmative statement to change our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, our beliefs, so that the more that we affirm it and believe it and feel it at depth, the more we are aligned and connected with God. So if we're in a state of unforgiveness, for example, what I like to say is we're crimping the hose. The water hose, if you crimp it, it's going to block it. So prayer helps us to open up that line, open up the hose, so that we can be more open and more receptive to the spiritual truths. And the more open we are and the more we receive them, the more we embody them, the more we live from there, the more awakened we become. And the more joyful we are, the more we feel love, God's love, the more we are able to access spiritual truth. Because there's a divine intelligence that's always sitting there waiting for us to say, okay, I'm here. I'm waiting. But we have to go there. It's not
And
done for us.
as you're speaking, I'm wanting to ask you about yourself and what are you said, prayer doesn't change God, it changes us. What are some of the things you mentioned you've evolved? What are some of the things that you've observed in yourself or in others that you attribute to your prayer practice that may be changed?
Well, one is you are more likely to be in the present moment. If we're right in the present moment and we're open and receptive, then we're going to be clear channels for God's grace. Um, I like to say that prayer didn't heal me. Prayer enabled me to deal with my illness in a different way. I changed the relationship with my illness so that I was able to know, feel, and believe that I was being supported. It wasn't something done to me, it was something that we were going through together. It was a journey. And obviously, I've improved greatly. There's many times I've been knocked back down, but I always come back up and I always have faith that I'm going to still be supported in whatever way. If it means I'm staying in bed, I know I'm still being supported. I still have a connection with God. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It strengthened your faith.
It did. It did. I have unwavering faith. And people have asked me where does that come from? And I said it's God given. I've just been blessed to have that feeling within me and that connection. I I I just feel very blessed because no matter what has occurred in my life, I've never wavered from the fact that I was never alone. I'm not doing this alone. And
Mimi,
if I believe that, then when I'm praying with somebody else, I help open up that peace within them.
mhm. You reminded me of the interview we did last fall with Marty Woodkey, who's a CSA minister, and he works with people with neurofeedback. And he said that they that his clinic they tend to get really good results because they have a secret sauce. I think I made up the phrase secret sauce. And what they do as they're doing the clinical procedures is they are seeing the person whole, well,
Right.
as a spiritual being. And so that's the differentiator. And I think it does make a difference.
Yes.
I'm just thinking as you were talking about a time I had a job where I had a very difficult customer that I saw on a daily basis. And I made a practice of imagining that person smiling,
Yes.
peaceful. I actually
Yes.
imagined her talking about our grandkids because that's when I could see that in her. And I will say it made a difference. It made a difference
Yes.
in
Yes.
how she showed up for me.
Yes.
So I think in my own way, maybe that was a prayer before
Yes, it was. It
I
was.
didn't know it was.
And you were changing you so that the person responded to you
I was
differently.
changing me, so I was somehow happier to see her, and she maybe felt it. But I would love it, maybe if you would talk about how to pray affirmatively, uh, what someone might do. Because, for example, I did grow up Catholic, and every prayer that I heard in my childhood was a memorized, recited prayer. I didn't have any examples of spontaneous prayer or personal prayer. Really, it was all kind
Right.
of what was memorized. And so when I walked away from that, I didn't pray, and I'm just starting now to pray in my own way. But what would you say to someone who maybe wants to have this conversation with God, in God, But as you said, maybe you described, when you started, you needed note cards, but how do we start?
Yeah. So in unity, there's a 5-step process, and prayer and meditation blend together in the unity way of affirmative prayer. So your first step is going to be you have to relax. And whenever I start a meditation, let's relax, because if you're not relaxed, again, you're crimping the hose. You're not open and receptive. So you need to relax. You use the breath. You release tension. You actually visualize your body relaxing. The more you breathe and the deeper you go, your mind starts settling. That's you have to go in that step first, and then you go to the next step where you're actually we call concentrate, where you actually connect with the divine. So whatever way you call forth God, some ways like living, loving light of God, or we move into the stillness and the presence of God is with it. Whatever phrase or whatever helps you get to that space where you have a feeling of God's presence. And the feeling part is very important. So again, when I'm praying with somebody, if they know I'm feeling that presence, that helps bring them to their understanding or their feeling of the divine. So, you're affirming statements that God and I are one. I'm moving from my head to my heart. I invoke the name of the divine in whatever way I understand it. Whatever phrases helps you get to that space of feeling the connection. Then you get silent. And that's what we call why we say prayer and meditation come together in affirmative prayer. You get silent and you listen for the still small voice, whatever might need to come forth. And then after you do that, then you're going to go into what we call realize, where you are affirming a spiritual truth and you're repeating it until you feel it and believe it, where you realize it. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get there. Uh, I affirmatively state a spiritual truth, and for example, I know that the love and the light of God is always with me. I am never alone. And I continue with phrases such as that till I know that I'm in that space of realization, that it's the truth of my being. And then after that, then we always have as the next step gratitude, because when you're in a state of gratitude, you're the most open and the most receptive. So you always will state phrases of gratitude. Thank you for shifting me into this space of God's love, or whatever works for you. And then we always end by amen, so that we know, the person we're praying with knows, we're into closure. And those are the
I
basic
love it.
steps.
I love the basic steps, and they're very aligned with Kriya Yoga in that we definitely practice getting silent, and we practice awareness of God and our pure essence of being as the same, right? And then what Roy taught us was at the end of meditation is when if you do have a need or a worthwhile life enhancing desire, you just float it, and offer it and expect that if that doesn't happen, the right thing will happen, even if
Something,
you're not
this or
specific.
something
Yeah.
better, right? This or something better.
As you were speaking, I thought of another question, which is about words. Obviously, when you're praying as a chaplain with someone, you would pray out loud so that they can be supported by your words. But in your personal practice, do you pray out loud or just silently to yourself?
Yeah, silently. And what I'm doing for myself personally, because I've done it so much, I can get in that space fairly quickly. I move pretty quickly beyond words. So I'm just basking in the stillness, in the vibration of silence, and just feeling that wonderful space.
Well, and that was my next question, because I think I heard somewhere, meditation is listening to God, and prayer is talking to God. But I think that they don't even have to be broken down like that. That anytime we're in the silence and aware of the presence of God, that in itself is a prayer of surrender and um, one prayer I often have is just help me remember, help me remember
Hmm.
God is everywhere all the time.
Right, right.
Help me
Right.
remember to feel that. Thank you.
So,
Well,
to change that affirmatively, because that would be like an ask.
it's true. I do. I say, help me remember. That's an
I
ask, isn't
remember it,
it?
right?
Yeah.
And that's right. So to change it affirmatively, we say, "I know that I'm being helped, that it's coming what I need," or
Yes.
something along that.
Yes.
Switch it to an affirmative statement.
I'm already, I
Right?
remember my true essence of
Yes.
being at all
Right.
times. I think Roy put that on a coffee cup.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's like the
So can you
motto.
can you feel the difference in your body between the two?
Let me feel. Help me remember. I'm already talking to someone outside myself, right? When I say that. So if I just say, I am aware at all times of my pure essence of being,
Now you're
it
one,
does feel differently. I'm smiling.
right? And you're
That's it.
one. You're
Yeah.
one with
Yeah.
God. Right?
Yeah. That's it. That's so helpful. So Mimi, what are some of the maybe obstacles that people run into with prayer besides we talked about kind of that asking instead of embodying the truth? What are some other things you see that challenge people?
I think the biggest one is the concept of surrender. We have our ego, and we want to hang on to that. And for us to totally let go and say we are going to trust God, that's a big step. It's like jumping off the cliff, you know. So one of the phrases that I use frequently in my prayer is, we stand in faith, trusting that all is unfolding in a way that's for our highest and our best good. And when you say that statement and you really surrender to that truth, you are handing it over to God to say, I know you're going to give me what I need. And if I don't receive it, it's because not now, or not yet, or no, that's not what's for your highest and best good, or it's coming. It's not timing. So that's a big one. People want to say, but it didn't happen. I didn't get my prayers answered. Every prayer is answered. It's not answered in the way we always want it. It's answered in the way we need it. And if we have a divine purpose that's bigger than what we even can conceive of, we will be challenged until we get there. I mean, a 10-year illness of saying, I'm knocking you down until you surrender, and then coming up and realizing that that was my road to spirituality and my own truth. That's not the easiest way to go. So we can hear the whisper or we can get the knock on the head. But
Well, what you just said about trusting and surrender, maybe they're two separate things because I can think of times in my life that I was highly stressed and maybe on the outside looked like some pretty bad things were happening. And at those moments, I was not trusting. I was scared. I was scared. So
so you have,
how do we surrender? How do we trust?
yeah. So when you have a situation like that, and then you can look back and say, "Oh well, I was taken care. This was a blessing." I have to say that my illness was a blessing. It led me to my spirituality. That's a big statement. I sure couldn't have said that way back 10, 20 years ago. But in hindsight, I can look back, and that is a demonstration by God of the presence and that we are being taken care of. And so the more you see evidence in hindsight, the more you're strengthened and the more you can say, okay, okay. And when we first get on that path, we will be given demonstrations because God wants us to get it. We're going to be given opportunities to say, oh, okay, here's a little help.
So
So
the surrender and the trust doesn't necessarily just come because we say it out loud. So what you said about prayer, that you have to say the affirmation until you feel
feel
it.
it.
I guess there might just be times it doesn't come that day or the next day, but you keep at it. And so yeah, surrender
It's
is an
this,
interesting concept. Can you
it's
say
like,
anything more about it?
well, it's like this is what I say to the prayer chaplains. When you are starting to play the piano, boom, 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 you're doing scales very, because until it becomes a part, you embody, it becomes a part of you, and it's automatic. Then you add some, and then you add some, and then you add some, and you keep practicing. That's why we say prayer practice.
And
And the
surrender is
more
the
we,
same.
the
You have to
surrender's the
practice.
same. You have to practice. So the more, fake it till you make it, kind of thing. Keep doing it until you get to that place, and come up with words that you feel that are meaningful to you. One was for me is that I release this to the divine to be transmuted to love.
Oh, say that again.
I release whatever I have bothering me to the divine to be transmuted to love. And I can then feel it. I feel that I'm letting it go, that it's going somewhere. It's not just turning it over to a God that I can't see or know. But if I can say to be transmuted to love, everybody knows the feeling of love for the most part.
Well, and
Extreme cases, but for the most part.
I love that you encouraged us to find our own words, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes I hear someone like you who's so eloquent, and other ministers who are very eloquent with their prayers, and mine are very rudimentary. They're just
Right. And that's where you have to
raw. They're
start.
just raw from my heart in the moment. But
And
that's
that's where
what
you
where I
start.
am. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's where you
so I
start.
just say what's real for me now.
And the
Um,
words that I'm using now, I would have not have used 20 years ago. This has evolved. So I also stress that with my prayer chaplains. Don't look to me and the words that I'm saying for your words. It has to be yours. You have to feel it. It has to be, you have to embody it.
and as you said, the words ultimately, they are important when we're serving others, but in some ways, maybe even they're not, right? Because we've all been in the presence of someone who walks in the presence of God, and you feel it without words, right? Even they
Right.
could be from another culture, different language. You're around people like that, and you feel love and you feel peace coming from them.
And I also tell them, I said, they're not going to remember, nobody's going to remember what you said in your prayer, but they are going to remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, I bet you use that in your business career too.
Well, I
That's
wish
good.
I'd known that then.
It's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we're talking, a couple more things did come up for me. I wanted to talk a little bit more about faith.
Mm.
And so, is faith also something that you have to practice? Like, how do you strengthen faith?
Well, some of it, like I said, is fake it till you make it. You're going to continue to say your prayers, your affirmations until you start realizing it. And that may take a long while for some people. I I was absolutely blessed that I've had unwavering faith. I don't know where that came from. All I can say is God given. But if you're lacking faith, at least practicing the prayers or the affirmations of truth, if you can at least feel God's truth, love, peace, forgiveness.
Start with something that feels real to you. Right,
Yeah,
right, right. Because we don't want to try to brainwash ourselves into believing something. It's more, let me start with what I can believe, and
right,
let me start with what I can believe.
right. And then you're giving examples in life that will help. And where people fall down is where they don't feel like they're getting those examples, and that the hard times that we receive are God turning away from us. But that's not the case. We have free will. We make our choices. We don't always know why things happen to us, but there's always a higher purpose in what we're going through. So I come back to, I don't know what's going on here. I wish I wasn't in this muck, but I know I'm not alone. And I'm going to just continue going through the muck until it gets better, and it's going to be revealed at the right and perfect time. It's God's timing, not my timing.
Super helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes, sure.
Cool. Well, what else do you want us to know about prayer?
Well, the main thing that I really stress with my prayer chaplains or with people that we pray with is that it's God's not outside. God's within. We are one. We're not separate. And in that space, we are connected to other individuals as well. There's a group consciousness. It's not just us. And that we can affect that group consciousness by us raising our vibrations. And again, as I said, this prayer is to change us. So if we're praying for our country, for example, we're going to be praying that I'm in a space of peace, that I'm holding the highest truth of God. I'm not allowing myself to go to fear or to get caught up in a lot of all the muck, but I'm staying in that space of knowing the truth that God's love is blanketing all of us, enfolding us, is within us. And the more people that hold that truth, then we start raising the vibration of the whole country and the world. That's how the Berlin Wall came down. Same thing can happen for our country if we have more people staying in that space, or the world.
That's beautifully said, because I think I was just sharing recently with a friend that sometimes when things are challenging outside in the world, I wonder, how can I make a difference? And I'm not one to be on the street holding signs or anything. I'm just not. That's not
Mhm.
my path. And so, praying for peace is something I'm interested in doing, and willing to make a commitment to. Is
What you're holding is that the peace is within the person who has fear. I'm holding that truth for you, even though you may not be able to hold it for yourself. I'm holding that higher watch, and may you remember that you are not alone, that God is with you.
Mimi, is there anything else you want to tell us? Or what I'm really wanting to do is I just want to hear you pray. I want to pray with you. I
Okay.
think that
All
could be
right.
the most powerful use of our time. But is there anything else that you want to say to the audience? And it doesn't have to be limited to prayer.
Right, right. Find something that allows you to come into that space of joy. I don't know how anybody really functions in this world without a connection with God, because it can get tough. Life can be tough. And if you don't have some kind of connection with some kind of a divine presence, you feel very much alone. You feel hanging out there all by yourself. But if you have a relationship or you have a spiritual community that is helping to support you, you are not going through it alone. You are being supported. We are not meant to be alone. And so, having a spiritual practice, having a spiritual community, all ways of staying in a space of connectedness with spirit. And when we're connected as a spirit, we're connected with each other. You can't. That's just it's a universal principle. We are
Mm.
all interconnected, and what we do for one, we do for all. So we can make a difference. All of us can make a difference. You have a problem. You have people that are in your life that shouldn't be in your life. You don't have to have them in your life. You use your discernment, but you can send them love. You can hold that they have love within them. Even the worst people that we run across have the opportunity to have love within them. Sometimes we can't see it, but God's in each and every one of us.
Well, I feel like even just when you talk, it's a prayer. So would you lead us and the audience in a prayer that you feel is the most appropriate for today?
Sure, sure. All right,
I'm
let
going to
us let
just
us.
listen.
All right, let us pray. We turn within to the stillness in this sacred holy space of prayer, where we align with, harmonize with, and connect with the God of our understanding. It's from this place of oneness with all things that we are grateful for every blessing and every experience that has brought us to this place. We affirm that the living, loving presence of the divine is always with us, supporting us, uplifting us, and companioning us on our journey through life. So, no matter what is occurring in the outer world or the physical world of appearances, we know and we claim that the peace of the divine is always within us. So we rest in this inner peace and this inner truth and go forward in a state of expectancy with hearts full of gratitude, with hearts full of love. And so we let it be. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mimi, for joining us today. And I think just opening my eyes to even just the small little change we made to my prayer is really helpful. I didn't realize I was asking, which is
Yeah,
saying I don't have it, and that's
right.
helpful. And
What you're also doing is coming from a place of lack.
right, it's stating I don't have that remembrance or that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to learn more about the prayer program, or if they wanted to connect with you to learn more about prayers they could do for themselves, what's the best way to get in touch?
Email. Email would be
Okay.
the best. Yeah.
So if you're willing,
Absolutely.
we'll share that just in case people have questions. They may want to
Sure.
start something in their own community, or
Sure.
just get some guidance from you.
Sure.
Well, it has just been a delight. I'm so happy to know you. I'm happy to be connected, and we'll have you back another time to talk about. It sounds like the program's growing, so maybe in a year it will be. You'll have a whole nother other arm of it going.
Well, there's a lot of people that have been through the program. They come and they go, but it's touched a lot of lives.
Yeah,
It's touched a lot of
beautiful.
lives. Yeah.
And I'll
All
share
right.
also that there's some recorded prayers. I actually listened to a few on your website that were really beautiful, and I did enjoy the relaxation before, and then your affirmative words. So we'll link to those as well.
So every Thursday I do record a prayer and meditation, 15 minutes, and that's on YouTube. So you can go to the YouTube and access any of those at any time.
What a wonderful gift. I think we're going to need that in the next couple months.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Well, this has
Well,
been a joy. Thank you for allowing me
yes,
to share my passion.
yes. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you.
Peace. Amen. Thank you for tuning in to the Spirit Led Podcast. Special thanks to our producer, Monty Craig. Please subscribe to catch upcoming episodes. For support in your awakening journey, visit our sponsor, the Center for Spiritual Awareness at csa-davis.org. We offer online group meditations, classes, and in-person retreats at our headquarters in Lakemont, Georgia. Once again, that's csa-davis.org. Until next time, remember your pure essence of being, an eternal relationship with the infinite.